I've touched on things like this in the past. In fact, about 2 years ago, we even made a what if just like this one about Minato being an Uchiha, but I feel like we can do even better with it. Maybe make a story that's a bit more cinematic. I'd very much like to tell a more heartfelt story. One, perhaps, that allows us to see more into the kind of life Minato could have lived had he been born an Uchiha. What might have happened to him, what he might have experienced. So if you're all interested in a bit of a new story from an old idea, then sit right back and let me spin you a tale about Konoha's Black Flash, the dark-haired boy as fast as a bolt of lightning. Welcome to the Amagi. Before we begin, only 25% of our viewers are subscribed, so if you're a fan of the video, please like and double check if you are subscribed, and with that out of the way, let's get into the video. Deep in the center of the village hidden in the leaves, there's a compound. Now, this compound has seen its fair share of drama throughout the years, and if you've viewed many other worlds, you'll know that drama is their lot in life. They're forged from it and die by it. Such is the way of this people, ruled by their hearts instead of their brains. If you've not yet surmised, I'm speaking of the Uchiha clan. Once a mighty and prestigious clan, one of the more powerful clans in the world, having come together with their ancient rivals the Senju to form this village, they sometimes seem to be a forgotten part of it. But that isn't because they don't matter. The Senju have long since dissolved into the clan, and now their bloodline runs through nearly every member of the village to some degree. But the Uchiha clan are not so much the same. Tobirama Senju, the second Hokage, did his best to respect them, and tried his hardest to get them to let go of their clan-first mentality and do the same as the Senju. But stubbornness and possibly the fear that their loss of identity might leave them a clan in name only, dead almost genetically and no longer current, they resisted. And that wasn't against the law. It's not like other clans weren't doing it. Besides the Uchiha, there were the Hyuga. They were so much the sticklers for keeping their bloodline pure and controlled that they didn't even let their love of their clan interrupt it. They enslaved themselves to the whims of the first house, which was something a bit beyond the taste of even the Uchiha. That created a sort of rivalry between the two clans, who both felt that their own personal dojutsu surpassed the other. So many schoolyard debates came to fisticuffs over the power scale of the greatest shinobi from both sides, whether the Sharingan or Byakugan was better. The Sharingan tended to win most of the polls issued by the children at the academy, but the proponents of the Byakugan would always state that the Byakugan did not require genjutsu to be powerful or any further evolutions, but only the accuracy, the ability to see through genjutsu, and sometimes into people's minds in its strongest form. That its skills were more practical and could make their user into a deadly weapon. Sharingan doesn't need taijutsu to be viable was generally the statement that was shot back at those who fought for the Byakugan's honor, and that was generally what led to a duel between users of the Sharingan and the Byakugan. One person who did not tend to get into such debates was Minato Namikaze. He certainly found it entertaining to listen to, but he didn't generally try to inject himself into these debates. To be honest, while Minato himself was a bit partial to the Sharingan, he wasn't going to discount how powerful the Byakugan could be. They were both strong, just in different ways. But it was the way of the school. Minato, with his jet black hair, his black clothes, and his Uchiha clan mark on his back, tended to sit quietly. He had actually long since awakened his Sharingan. It was a prodigious thing to say the least. He didn't recall a time where he couldn't activate it. This was something that made others in his clan believe that he was perhaps destined to be the strongest user of the Sharingan since Madara Uchiha himself. Minato hoped not to live up to any comparison to Madara. Madara had tried to destroy the village. He had betrayed his own clan. The mere mention of his name was enough to make Minato spit. He continued to study, trying to ignore the ceaseless arguing between the other classmates, which was getting difficult. Eventually, a fistfight broke out. Looking up, Minato got out of his chair and walked over, trying to break it up. "You guys better break it up before the teacher gets here," he said, trying to push in between. One of the Hyuga clan boys was ready to deck the Uchiha clan boy who had dared impugn upon the honor of his clan. "Brute," the Hyuga clansman said. "You Uchiha, all ruled by your emotions. You just can't control yourselves, can you?" The Uchiha clan boy scoffed. "At least we're not slaves to our own clan. Look at your forehead. You're marked. You will only ever be allowed to do what the Hyuga clan tells you to do. The moment you step out of line, they'll fry your brain. We of the Uchiha clan may live an unruly life, but at least we get to live a life at all." Minato pushed the boy back. "Ko, shut up. That's cruel and mean." Minato looked back and saw the Hyuga clan boy looking away with a scowl, but Minato detected the sight of tears on the lower lids of the boy. Embarrassment. Ko had just touched on something very sensitive to the boy. To be honest, it was customary to have your children marked with the curse mark of the caged bird. Any Hyuga had to be marked by the time the next heir to the main branch turned 3. If it wasn't done, it could be viewed as an act of rebellion, punishable by death if refusal persisted. It was a cruel custom that even the Hyuga mostly disagreed with. It was the thing that most people saw about the Hyuga and pointed to as to show where their darkness lay. Ko, you gotta apologize, Minato said. Ko scoffed once more. Why? Why should I apologize for telling the truth? That boy fights for the Byakugan now because he's a slave to the clan who owns it. For all I know, if he ever admitted the Sharingan were better, his own clan would kill him. Minato forcibly put his hand over Ko's mouth, his Sharingan flaring. Apologize. Now. Ko sighed and rolled his eyes. Fine. Sorry. The Hyuga boy pushed out of the crowd and just walked on. Slowly, the crowd began to dissipate. As the commotion came to an end, they both sat down. Why were you defending him? We're brothers, aren't we? You should be defending me, Ko said. Minato looked over. I'm trying to defend the honor of my clan. Do you think the clan head would be pleased to know that you've been getting into petty arguments over a dojutsu? Ko looked around sarcastically. Yes? I'm standing up for the honor of the clan. Minato sighed and shook his head. I really wish that you'd stop trying to cause an issue, Ko. You should know by now that what makes a true shinobi isn't the type of dojutsu they have, but what they do with it. Perhaps so, but our dojutsu does give us the edge and the advantage. There's a reason why more Uchiha end up on the Anbu than any other clan. Minato put his pencil down and looked to his brother. And perhaps there's a reason why no Uchiha has ever been Hokage, Minato said. Ko smiled. Perhaps, but you plan to change that, don't you? Yes, but only if you don't screw it up for me, Minato said as he returned to his work. Not if I beat you to it, a third voice said, leaning over the desk behind her. What do you want, mater? The girl behind him grew red in the face, almost as red as her hair, to which the nickname came from. She was called Mater in class due to how her hair made her look like a tomato. She slapped him in the back of the head. You know I don't like being called that. Well, tough tits. If you don't want to be called Mater, then dye your hair. You should dye it green, Ko said. Then you'd be a green mater. A notebook was thrown into Ko's face. Ko was about to start fighting when Minato reached out and stopped him. You don't punch girls, Ko, Minato reminded him. Why not, Kushina asked. Afraid you'll lose? Ko began fighting against Minato's arm again. Minato threw him back into his seat. Bad, Ko, bad. Don't make me get the spritzer again. Ko sat there quietly. Enter Kushina Uzumaki, a transfer student from Uzoshio-gakure. Recently, the next Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails. She was small but strong, and despite her powerful reserves, she could hardly contain the power of the Nine Tails. Due to the beast's unruly chakra, only the Uzumaki or those of their heritage were deemed fit to be its Jinchuriki. This was due to both the increased chakra limits of an Uzumaki that could better encompass that of what was reputed to be the strongest tailed beast, but also due to their utilization of sealing jutsu. The Uzumaki were known for it. Many clans may have been practitioners of sealing jutsu, but only the Uzumaki could be named top dogs. Despite both of these things being present in Kushina, she wasn't very capable of controlling the Nine Tails. The entire village, or at least the vast majority of it, sat on top of a special sealing circle designed to further increase the Jinchuriki's control over the Nine Tails. And while Kushina could leave that circle, the moment she did, the Nine Tails' influence became noticeably larger. This effectively made her a useless weapon in the wars Konoha often waged, as the moment she left the village, she would become more of a danger to her allies as opposed to her enemy. But despite that, she set her sights high, hoping to become the first female Hokage in the history of Konoha. That technically made her Minato's rival. As the day dragged on, they finished their classes and began making their way home. Minato and Ko together strode back to the compound in a happy way. While it was getting late, it was also known that they had no homework to do, which meant that the rest of their day was free. So what do you want to do when we get home, Minato? Want to play Shinobi Strikers? Minato thought about it. I was kinda thinking about Ultimate Ninja Storm. Which one? Ko asked. Generations. Why Generations? You know 4 is better. Minato thought about it. I'm not sure. I just feel nostalgic about it. It was the first one I was ever invited to play when I visited Fugaku's house. Ko sighed. Then Generations it is, but I get to play as Hashirama Senju. Getting there, they were stopped by Fugaku Uchiha. Hey boys, ready to get schooled in Hashirama Kart? Minato wanted to play Ninja Storm, Ko said. Fugaku rolled his head back. Man, Minato, can't you pick a game that 3 people can play at the same time? Well, you are coming to my house, Fugaku. Shouldn't I get to choose the game? Perhaps, Fugaku said. But you should also be a good host and remember that I don't have to be there. Minato rolled his eyes. Hashirama Kart it is. This was a day in the life of Minato Uchiha. It was a simple life he lived, but it was a life he knew was going to lead him to greatness. And as the time rolled by, days, weeks, months, years, his tenure at the academy was drawing to a close. And through his skills and abilities, he was quickly noticed by many Jonin who were looking to start a team of their own. But none of the Jonin were as prestigious as the one who was watching him now. Minato Uchiha, huh? That's his name? Yes, it is, Hiruzen said as he took a long drag from his pipe, blowing out the smoke playfully in the shape of a ring. Are you interested in this boy, Jiraiya? Hiruzen asked. Jiraiya nodded. Something about him makes me feel like he's gonna be the one foretold to me by the Toad Sage. You really think so? Hiruzen asked. What makes you say that? Jiraiya shook his head. You can call it a gut feeling. Something about that kid could lead to the fulfillment of the prophecy. Shall I call him in then? Hiruzen asked. Jiraiya nodded. Yeah, I think I'd like to meet him personally. And so Minato was called into the office by Hiruzen. As soon as he saw Jiraiya sitting on the nearby sofa, Minato knew something was up. His reasoning and powers of deduction told him that this scruffy-haired dude was looking to train him. You asked for me, Lord Third? Minato asked. Indeed. Please sit. Minato did as bidden. Sitting down, he let a few moments pass. What is this about? He asked, with as much respect in his voice as he could muster. Your skills are impeccable, Minato. You're truly one of the most gifted students to ever study at the Konoha Academy for Young Shinobi. Due to this, you've attracted the eyes of many Jonin who wish to help you on your journey. Minato looked over at Jiraiya and then back to Hiruzen. Am I to assume that this gentleman here is one of those Jonin? He's smart. I like it, Jiraiya said as Hiruzen continued. Yes, this is Jiraiya. He's one of my prized pupils, one of the best shinobi in the whole village, though I wouldn't ask him. He's too humble of heart. He's been watching you for some time, Minato, and he'd like to take you under his wing and make you one of his pupils. Minato began to smile. His career was finally about to pick up. This is wonderful news. Sounds great. Does this mean you wish to take him up on his offer? Hiruzen asked. Minato stood. Yes, of course I would. Minato stopped for a second. But what about Ko? Hiruzen looked at Jiraiya, who offered a glance back. I don't believe Jiraiya had his eyes set on him. Minato looked down in deep thought. Do you still wish to take Jiraiya up on his offer? Hiruzen asked. Minato, thinking about it, spoke. I don't know. I'm gonna need some time to pray on it. Me and my brother are very close, and we always said that we were going to be on the same team together. I understand that, Minato, Hiruzen said, but this is a big opportunity for you. Jiraiya is one of my personal students, and he's one of the few people I would entrust the role of Hokage to. Taking him up on this could expedite your dream of becoming Hokage one day. I know, sir, Minato said, but I don't know if I can do Ko like that. Hiruzen sat back. That's fair. We'll give you time to decide. Minato thought about it. Going home that night, he sat in the gaming room that was created by their father for the two of them. The spare bedroom they had was where they had set up all their gaming systems and anything else that would help entertain them. For all intents and purposes, this was Minato and Ko's own personal man cave. Yet today, as Ko played games, Minato sort of sat back quietly and watched. Hey, Minato, wanna play more Ninja Storm? I think I've finally got the hang of it. No thanks, you play, Minato said, drawing suspicion from Ko. Pausing the game, Ko looked back. You all right? Minato looked down, deep in thought. Ko stood and walked over, kneeling by the beanbag chair where Minato was currently sitting. Hey, what's wrong? He asked his brother, eyes full of concern. Minato looked down, twiddling his thumbs, and then back up. Today I got offered a position under a very prestigious Jonin. Well, hey, that's wonderful. Why are you upset? We should be celebrating. He didn't want you, Minato said. Ko stopped for a moment, trying to process what Minato was saying. He didn't... Ko then understood why Minato was upset. But you still want to go, don't you? Minato shook his head. I don't think I'm gonna take it, Ko. We already made the decision that we were going to be on the same team together, and that's what I'm planning to do. Minato, you can't turn down an opportunity like this. You gotta take him up on that role. Minato was fighting back the urge to cry. How can I enjoy it, though, if I know you're not gonna be there? Ko looked down. Minato, we were very young when we made that decision. The world just doesn't work like that. He put his hand on Minato's knee. I want you to take the position. You deserve it. It'll be good for you. Besides, you're the one who wants to be Hokage. I don't even care about that. I just want to be a good shinobi, Ko said, ending his sentence with a chuckle. But all the same, this was still upsetting Minato. Ko's chuckle vanished. Hey, Minato, I'm serious. Please, take that position. I'll be fine. I'll find my own way. You don't have to worry about me. I wanted us to stick together, Minato said, swallowing hard, trying not to cry. Minato, no matter where you go, I'll always be a part of you. I'll always be with you. Even if we're far apart, we'll be together. Minato could no longer hold it back. Tears began to roll down his cheeks. Ko pulled him into his embrace. Ko, I don't want to leave you behind. You don't have to, Minato, but you do need to think about yourself. I want you to take this position. That night, Minato laid in bed, eyes wide open, thinking about his issues. He didn't want to leave Ko behind, but he didn't want to stunt his growth as a shinobi. What was he to do? The next morning, Minato was summoned to Hiruzen's office again, where Jiraiya was waiting. Minato had mentally prepared himself for this moment. As soon as he entered the room, he saw Jiraiya leaning against the desk. Lord Fourth, Master Jiraiya, I'm sorry to say this, but I can't... Let me just stop you right there, Jiraiya said, throwing cold water all over the fire Minato had planted in his belly. Minato felt himself shrink in the presence of the kabuki-styled character before him. Jiraiya offered a smile. Yesterday, after you left, I decided to look into this Ko that you were talking about, and I found his resume to be pretty impressive itself. I think he'd make a fine addition to the team. So if you won't join my team without Ko, then bring him with you. No skin off my warty nose. Minato's eyes widened. You really mean that? Minato asked. Jiraiya nodded. All I ask is that you please take me up on my offer. You have so much potential, and I'd like to help you reach the fullness of it. Minato nodded heartily. Yes, sir. Definitely, sir. Can I tell Ko? Hiruzen was fighting and losing the urge to smile at this situation. Jiraiya looked down with a chuckle. Yes, Minato, you can. Minato raced out of the office to go tell Ko. At first, Ko was in disbelief, but when it finally sank in, he grew as excited as Minato had. The two boys quickly took to their new role as student and excitedly awaited the teaching of their master. Besides Minato and Ko, they were introduced to a third member of their team, Dekai. He was a boy with dark hair and dark skin, and he seemed to have hailed from a family that defected from Kumogakure during the First Shinobi World War. They waited for Jiraiya to show up as their team's leader, and when he eventually did, he went about getting to know them. Tell me a bit more about yourselves. I'd like to know more about the students that I plan on teaching, he said. Minato began. I'm Minato Uchiha. I like ramen noodles. I dislike anything wrong or evil, and my dream is to be Hokage. Jiraiya nodded. Yes, I know about you, and your drive to become Hokage is admirable. But what about you, Ko? I don't know as much about you. What is it that you like? Well, I enjoy video games. I like to play with my friends, and I'm considered a quick learner. I, like many other users of the Sharingan, have quick reaction time and a photogenic memory. I dislike sweet pickles with a passion, and my dreams are, well, I guess they're just to become the best shinobi I can be. Jiraiya smiled. A simple dream. Reminds me of myself. I never really cared to be Hokage either. Your abilities, while similar to Minato's, will be put to good use. I'm looking forward to seeing how you grow as a shinobi as well. Now what about you, Dekai? Well, I'm a member of a family that left Kumo during the First Shinobi World War. I'm proficient in lightning release jutsu, as that's my family's particular jutsu type, and I enjoyed quite a bit to stop by that barbecue place every so often and get me some of that sweet meat. As for things I dislike, it would be people of power who abuse their powers to hurt the people they're supposed to work for. It's the reason my family left Kumo in the first place. Jiraiya nodded. Ah, someone who likes to fight for the weak. A very Robin Hood personality. Very good for a shinobi, similar to me. What about you, Jiraiya-sensei? Ko asked. Jiraiya thought about it. Well, I am a shinobi primarily, but in my off time, I very much enjoy studying writing. I hope to one day become a novelist and tell stories that help the next generation. What are things you like, Jiraiya-sensei? Dekai asked. Jiraiya smiled as he thought about it. I really like a woman with a big, plump chest. He had one woman in mind, one that would forever remain his white whale. Looking down at the kids, he saw Dekai horrified, Minato trying to ignore what just happened, and Ko nodding his head with a smirk of agreement. A little embarrassed, he then spoke again. Anyway, I think that's enough getting to know each other. Now I'm gonna take you guys outside and put you to the test. Test? Ko asked. Yeah, I want to know what you're capable of. It's one thing to read about it in a file, but I want to see it in action. That's the only way I can truly tell if you're fit to be a part of my prospective Team 6. You mean you haven't truly decided yet? Dekai asked. Jiraiya thought about it. Well, I would very much like for you to be a part of my team, but I need to make sure that everything said in those files are accurate. It's one thing to measure a student based on GPAs and all that stuff, but it's a totally different thing to put them in the moment and see how they stack up individually and as a team. So follow me. He led them out into the nearby forest. I think this looks like a good place, he said. He proceeded to pull 2 bells out of his pocket. Do you see these bells here? These are essentially your future. Jiraiya tied them about his waist. Your job is to get the bells. If you can take them from me, you'll win. You'll become the members of my new Team 6. However, should you fail... Jiraiya looked away awkwardly. I don't think you want that. So when do we begin? Minato asked. Suddenly there was a puff of smoke and Jiraiya was gone. They were confused and looked everywhere for him. Suddenly his voice rang out from the distance, from a perch on the trees. It already has. He rushed into the forest. Minato, Ko, and Dekai all ran into the forest. "What's the plan?" Ko asked. "He's a Jonin, and considered one of the strongest shinobi that's ever been produced by the village," Minato said. "I'm not sure we can really beat him at this level, but we need to not only bring our A game and use everything we have at our disposal against him, but we'll also need to work as a team, which means that if we don't all get bells, none of us do." "If he's so far above our strength level, then how are we supposed to get the bells? He's a highly skilled Jonin. This seems like an impossible task for a group of Genin." "It does," Minato said. "But all that being said, I sort of feel like he's not expecting us to get the bells. This is a test after all. The bells are just a goal for us to attain. His goal is to see what we're capable of. It also seems likely that if us getting the bells from him is a true objective that our careers live and die by, he should make it easier for us to do." "You think he'll nerf himself?" Ko asked. Minato shook his head. "I'm not saying anything. What I'm saying is that we just need to stick together, do our best, and hope we pass whatever test he's making us perform." As they rushed through the trees, they spotted Jiraiya in the distance. "There he is. Ko, Dekai, flanking maneuver. Ko, go to the right of Jiraiya. Dekai, take the left. I'll drive him forward. Then we'll close the pincer." Both boys nodded their head and began to do as told. All the while, Minato kept moving forward. He began to will his body to move faster. He poured chakra into his legs. To a degree, one might mistake Minato for having lightning nature. His primary nature was actually wind, but despite that, he was trying to learn lightning style, and his mixing of techniques was allowing him to get far closer to Jiraiya through the increase in speed. Jiraiya looked back and saw Minato catching up. "Man, guy's a little dark-headed flash of lightning, isn't he?" To a degree, Ko and Dekai were now having a hard time keeping up, which was actually messing up their teamwork. Assuming that Jiraiya was trying to regulate himself to better match the team, Minato realized that his trying too hard was becoming a detriment, so he began to pull back a little and slow down. Jiraiya, looking back again, spoke. Guess he wore himself out." And just as Minato predicted, Jiraiya began to slow down as well. Jiraiya jumped to a higher tree limb. "Better luck next time, boys." Suddenly, a shuriken flew through the air and cut through a good portion of the tree branch. It collapsed under Jiraiya's weight, causing him to fall and land on the two boys. Suddenly, he looked down and saw Ko's hand gripping onto the bells. "Winner, winner, turkey dinner," he struggled to say. Jiraiya let out a sigh. He rolled off the boys and stood. "That's on me. I stopped taking you guys seriously too soon." Helping Ko and Dekai up, he spoke. "Well, a deal's a deal. You guys are now officially members of Team Jiraiya." Many months passed, and the group would continue to train under their master. That was until an urgent alert came out. Kushina Uzumaki had disappeared, and with her, the Ninetales. Team Jiraiya would join the emergency search party. They knew that if the Ninetales were to leave the village, its primary source of deterrence would then be gone, and the already fragile peace would fall into a new world war. And so, as the rest of Konoha's groups were out and about searching every alleyway, Team 6 would go straight to the home of Kushina, hoping to find any clues that might give away what happened. Walking in, they began to look around. There appeared to be no sign of a struggle, so was this just a girl who'd lost her marbles and run away? That's what most of the village believed, but Minato knew Mater, and he knew her well. She wasn't the kind to run away from a problem. As they continued to search for clues, none seemed to stick out, but that's when Minato came up with a good idea. Maybe there's a way for us to see if we've been the only ones here. Going to her kitchen, he found a bag of flour. He took a fistful and blew it from his hand to the ground. He further used wind style to blow the excess flour away. This revealed myriad different footprints. "Bingo," Minato said. The group came together to examine what Minato had discovered. "See, I told you we weren't the only ones here," Minato said. "Well, of course not. Other shinobi have been here investigating. No wonder there's shoe marks everywhere. This doesn't help us at all," Ko said. Minato realized that his brother was right. Jiraiya patted him on the shoulder. "That's all right, Minato. It was a good guess." The group then began to search the rest of the house. "Perhaps she kept a diary or something. That should help us get a better idea of what she was thinking," Jiraiya said. Looking back at Dekai, who was still by the flower, Jiraiya called out, "You coming?" Dekai then spoke. "I think Minato was actually right." Jiraiya and the others walked over. "What is it?" Dekai then began pointing out certain footprints. "Look at these. These are just a little bit different. Have you noticed?" Jiraiya looked closer. "Yeah? What's your point?" Dekai then continued. "All the shoes worn by Konoha nin have the same bottom pattern because they're standard issue, but these over here have a slightly different pattern. They're more rigid on the bottom. This is to help one keep traction in a mountainous region. And these marks match these marks." "Where are you going with this?" Ko asked. "What I'm saying is that these shoes here are standard issue of our village while these here aren't. Yet they're uniform, meaning they're standard issue somewhere. Considering the shape, they're built for a mountainous region. I could deduce that this means shinobi from another village, particularly one in a mountainous region, and there's one that comes to mind, that I have a personal connection to." Jiraiya looked more closely at the tracks. He then looked up at Dekai. "Kumo nin." Dekai nodded. "I need to call this in," Jiraiya said. "We gotta focus our search on the regions outside of Konoha. They could already be out of the village by now." Jiraiya pulled out a radio. Sharingan activated, Ko took a mental image of the footprints. Minato, doing the same, noticed that there was long strands of red hair everywhere. Minato stepped outside with Ko. "Prints look like they're headed in that direction," Ko said. "And there's red hair too," Minato said. The two boys began to pursue the group. The tracks led them out of the village into the forests and plains beyond. Minato and Ko continued to follow the tracks, but when the tracks seemed to diverge and go in different directions, they were confused. "Which do we follow?" Ko asked. "We'll split up. It's our best bet," Minato said. Ko nodded and began to follow one set of footprints. Minato prepared to follow the other set, but stopped. He noticed another type of footprint, one different from the standard issue print of the Kumo. But what he did notice is that these prints were deeper than those that Kumo were leaving behind. Inspecting them closer, he found a single crimson hair stuck in the mud of the footprint. His gut was telling him that both footpaths were now decoys, and whoever had left these behind were the ones responsible for kidnapping Kushina. Following his instincts, he followed this particular set of tracks instead. Moving as fast as he could, he noticed ahead a group of shinobi, and in their arms, a girl who had been secretly pulling hairs out of her head and dropping them every once in a while. Minato suddenly went business mode. Pulling out a kunai, he knew he couldn't wait for reinforcements. They were right now walking through one of the darkest parts of the forest. The one in the middle was the one carrying Kushina, so he was definitely the slowest of the three. He decided he would attack the one in the rear, and when he fell and drew attention, he would take out Point Man, leaving only the one carrying Kushina. He set his plan into motion, doing all that he planned. The one carrying Kushina would drop her on the ground after witnessing the fall of his comrades. He would flee to the trees, hoping that they might give him refuge, but Minato was already there, and with a swift strike, that one went down too. Minato dropped down to the ground to see Kushina up and already trying to escape in his direction, but she looked ragged, hair everywhere. As she drew closer, she fell to her knees, ready to keel over. "Mater!" he shouted as he ran over, catching her. As she fell into his arms, all the emotion she had let build up since her capture began to escape, and she began to cry, reduced to the child that she actually was. "Are you okay?" he asked. She looked up. "How did you find me?" she demanded to know. Minato smiled. "I followed your red hair." He lifted her up into his arms and began to run off. "Why did God curse me with this atrocious red hair?" she said. "Oh, don't be like that. This red hair saved your life. I'd recognize it anywhere. It's unique." "It's different," she said. "Everyone always picks on me because of it. This is the only good it's ever done me, and it'll be the only good it'll ever do." "I think you're too hard on yourself," Minato said as he traveled across the treetops back toward Konoha. "So what if people make fun of it because it's different? It's not atrocious by any means." "It's so garish," she shouted. Minato shook his head with a sigh. "You're the only person I know who can go from being captured straight into a rant about vanity. Your hair's not that ugly, Mater. Stop it!" "Stop what?" "Stop calling me that," she said as she continued crying. "Everyone calls me that," she said as she hid her head inside of Minato's chest, prompting him to stop moving. "Everyone calls me Mater. I'm not Mater, I'm Kushina." Minato looked down at her. "You know, I only call you Mater because a tomato's the most beautiful of all veggies." She looked up at Minato. "What?" Minato seemed to blush a little. "Tomatoes are vibrant and red, and they smell like springtime. They taste like summer on a sandwich. And best of all, they become the best condiment in the whole world. Maters are the best veggie in the world. They're actually fruits. They're not a part of the vegetable line of produce," she said. Minato smiled. "Could have fooled me. Who would have thought that tomatoes were outsiders to veggies when they fit with the group so well? I guess that's another trait you share with Maters. You may not be from here, but you fit in so well. You're an honorary veggie." Kushina looked up at Minato with shock on her face. Minato smiled. "Anyway, I'm taking you home, Mater. Be sure to comb that ratty nest out. Make it look all pretty again instead of everywhere." It was at this moment that Kushina knew she had a thing for this Uchiha boy. He, like his hair, may have had a bit of a dark exterior, but inside he was pure gold. Upon returning Kushina to the village, Minato and the rest of Team 6 received commendations for their work. This did not go unrecognized by the Hokage or Jiraiya. Jiraiya walked into the Hokage's office. "What is it, Jiraiya?" Hiruzen asked. "I'd like to ask that you let my team take the Chunin exams." Hiruzen looked up. "I don't know if there will be a Chunin exams this year. We may just start handing out ranks." "You can't cancel it," Jiraiya said. "It's tradition, not to mention a show of power. We're headed into a second Shinobi World War, Jiraiya. I don't think we'll be able to." "Nah," Jiraiya said. "That's why you need to hold the exams. Maybe it'll scare off the other villages, and if it doesn't, well, at least you'll know you can rely upon your shinobi." Hiruzen thought about it. "You really want this for your team, don't you?" Jiraiya nodded. "Yeah. After the way they took charge, and not only learned where the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki was taken, but took the initiative and brought her back, they deserve to be upgraded to Chunin." Hiruzen thought about it. Jiraiya then spoke. Come on, Hiruzen-sensei. If war does happen, I want nothing more than to be able to face it head-on with my team. Hiruzen thought about it. All right, fine, I approve. When the next Chunin exams come around, your team may participate. And that's where I plan to stop it for the day. What did you think? Did you enjoy it? Let us know in the comments below. Personally, one of my favorite things to write in this was a new perspective on the relationship between Minato and Kushina. I love how Minato was sort of one of the bullies a bit, but that his teasing actually meant he liked her. That's not too uncommon among school kids, actually. Sometimes a boy picks on a girl that he likes. Love is an awkward feeling, and some people just don't know what to do with it, so they channel it into a bit of rough play. But eventually, boys and girls grow into men and women, and when they do, that icy shell breaks and a true warmth shines through, just like winter thawing into spring. I suppose that's why spring is considered the season of love. But alas, I grow too mushy. If you liked the video, be sure to click the thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified when more videos like this drop. Until next time, peace.